Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about renaturing. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is a thinker, and that is what we will be thinking about today. Luckily for me, I have Betsy here who's going to be helping us think about this in a whole new way. So, with that being said, thank you so much, Betsy, for coming onto my show, sharing your time, your perspective with me. You could be anywhere in the world right now, but you are here with me, and I appreciate you. So, let's just dive right in. What does renaturing make you think about?
I came up with the idea of renaturing when I I was thinking about the chemistry, the chemical process of denaturing and like separating things into their component parts. And um I felt scattered when I wrote that. And I felt like I was trauma and I was fatigue and I was chronic illness and but I wasn't a whole human. Like I was just these separate things. And so I wanted to put myself back together again. And I found somatic experiencing, which worked for me. But I also have a lifetime's worth, well, 40 years worth of being fascinated by nature and wildlife and animals. And so I bring all of this interest in nature and, how the natural world holds balance. And
Yes.
I'm using that and somatic experiencing to kind of renature myself and pull all those scattered, fragmented parts back together again, bring some coherence in and glue it all back together and resolve some trauma and heal and feel physically better than I did and mentally and emotionally better than I did. And I mean, I bring renaturing to other humans as well.
Yes, I think that's a very valid point because people don't really think about that. You know what I mean? We don't really realize like the categories that we allow our minds to process information, process our trauma, process life in general. Like those little bubbles, those clouds, those boxes, whatever that people want to call it, those categories truly do separate us. You know what I mean? And then puts us in this state of confusion, like what really am I? But in reality, we are already whole. We are just one human being, just whole, and we just have to realize that's what we are. We are whole. We may have imperfections. We may have little parts of us that may feel missing or just confused or just unaware of what's happening in there. But in reality, that doesn't diminish what it is. You know what I mean? Just because we don't know what an animal is doesn't mean it disqualifies what that animal is. You know what I mean? And it's the same as us as human beings. Like just because we're unsure of what's happening inside of us and in our mind and around us and outside of us, doesn't necessarily mean that we are not already, you know what I mean, a human being, you know what I mean, an individual with thoughts and feelings and emotions and comprehension, you know what I mean? Like we are so great as we are as a human being, but it's like life and society, they make us question who we are. You know what I mean? They make us doubt if we are even human or if we are enough for the world to accept us. But it's like comes down to when we renature, when we come back to nature, and it truly is fascinating. I love animals too because I'm one that goes on Animal Planet. Instead of I have Disney Plus for my sons, but I go on Disney for like the animals and the nature and all of those natural National
Oh yeah.
Geographics because it's so fascinating. Like I seen this one episode where they were talking about how in Hawaii there's this seed that ends up finding its way in the ashes, you know what I mean, of the lava, and then ends up being able to still grow. You know what I mean? You wouldn't think that a seed would be able to grow in burnt, in ground and just, you know what I mean, anything like that, but it's still able to find a way. And that's what we are as humans, you know what I mean? We're seeds and we are able to find a way to still be planted and still find beauty in whatever that we do. But it's just about like reframing our mind. So I guess it's like, how do you reframe your mind and how do you reconnect in nature in a way that it grounds you?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I work with the nervous system,
Oh, okay.
the human nervous system, but also from all of my experience working with animal nervous systems, and then just understanding the fungal networks underground and the way that the trees work and the way that the entire like ecosystem works. And we are an ecosystem, right? And so um, we have to we have to look at it as a whole, right? Our bodies, our nervous systems have always done the very best they could,
Yes. Oh,
right? So
yes.
there's actually nothing wrong with us. There's not a damn thing wrong with any of us. We
Yes, yes. Thank
have,
you for saying that. Oh,
yeah,
ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. Okay, continue.
we have trauma patterns and we have coping strategies that we've come up with over years or decades, right? Sure, we do. And maybe we'd prefer not to do heroin to escape from our lives, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a really good solution when we don't have any other strategies. Right? I
Yes,
mean, sometimes
yes.
it's a solution to end it all, but I mean, I'm not saying that's a good thing, but there's no good or bad, right? We are just an animal doing the very best we can, pretending like we're not an animal. I like to talk about how we've been socialized and trained to think that our prefrontal cortex is the only thing that's important, and it just directs this meat robot that's underneath it, right?
Yeah,
But we're not. Like, we are an entire nervous system clothed in structure and muscle and intuition and a huge number of like non-human cells, right? Whether it's bacteria or fungal stuff like in us that is like we're a super organism, right? So we have to take
yeah.
care of all of us and understand that it all of us is doing the very best it can and always has.
Exactly. I love that. I absolutely love what you're saying because people don't realize that, and it's like one analogy that comes to mind when you were talking about is like our nose isn't jealous of our hands. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. Our ears aren't jealous of our feet. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't work like that. Like all of our body works in a manner that allows us to experience the world in the best way possible. You know what I mean? And I think once we realize that as a human, we are great as we are, and we don't have to compete with anybody. We don't have to compare ourselves to anybody. Like I understand comparison to a degree to make sure that you're on the right line. Great. To a degree, but don't fall into the trap of insecurity. Don't fall into the trap of performance. Don't fall into the trap of envy. You know what I mean? Because that takes away from who we are. And you are great as we are, but we just have to remember that. So it's like when we go out into nature, one thing I realized is like, oh, this tree, it could be an oak tree, but it's beautiful being an oak tree. But if I'm in Florida and I see a palm tree, I'm gonna be like, oh wow, this palm tree is beautiful for where it's at. So it's like there's no
Mhm.
competition. And it's like as human beings, it's like I wish we could see that. You know what I mean? I wish we could see the value that we have because it's like you said, we are just an animal just reacting naturally to our habitat, to our environment, but people don't see that because they're like, oh, well, if you live in this area, then you should be more like this. Or if you live in that area, you should try to be more like us in this area. But it's like, no, why don't we just embrace the fact that we all are a little bit different, a little bit funky, a little bit fun, a little bit amazing in our own way? So it's like we can process the trauma that was bestowed upon us through generations or bestowed upon us by our own experiences because no matter what we're going to be facing some type of trauma, but it's like where does it allow you to be identified by that? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You were talking about trees, and I was just thinking, I live in the northeast of the US, and we have all these white pines that if they get damaged on the top as they're little babies, then they grow multiple trunks that all go up. And so we've got these big old trees that are like somewhere between like, I don't know, 3 to 15 feet in the air. They like split into four, five, eight different trunks. So all of those young branches turned into trunks. And we look at those
Yeah.
and we say, oh my God, that is an amazing tree. The only people that don't say that are the people who want a tall, straight tree for board footage, right? To exploit that tree. But that those pines that are out there that are gnarly and huge and soaking up the sunshine because they've got all these trunks and all these needles, they don't get cut down because what the
Yes.
heck are they going to do with those? Those aren't worth anything, right? So our
Oh,
damage like makes us stronger, providing we can get through it and past it and resolve it so that it's not continuing to hurt us for the rest of our lives.
yeah.
But we can be strong and huge and beautiful as,
Yes.
but it's harder to exploit us.
Right? Oh, I love that. I love that analogy, right? Because it really does bring value. Because when that tree is just naturally doing what it feels natural, you know what I mean, in its environment. You know what I mean?
And
No,
that's
it's not.
all we're doing at any moment.
Exactly. And that it truly is what we're doing at any moment. We're just doing what feels natural, doing what feels right. And I think just that renaturing aspect just makes us realize like if you're doing what feels right in your heart, then it doesn't matter what anybody else says, as long as you know in your heart that this is the right thing to do for you, for your well-being, then do it. You know what I mean? And I think that's where putting boundaries is important. You know what I mean? Having that self-respect is important because you know what you can and cannot handle. Like that tree is not going to just not make extra trunks if it doesn't feel like it. You know what I mean? It's going to just do it because it knows it needs it. You know what I mean? It knows where it's going to get its nutrients from. It knows where the value holds. So it's just like if a tree could automatically have that value, have that understanding, you know what I mean? Nature, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, when my husband first moved out to from Texas to Wisconsin, he was just like, "How is the grass going to be green again? It's already dead. Like it's snow. Like that would never happen." But he got to see the rebirth of grass. You know what I mean? Of flowers all over again. He was like, "I can't believe this is happening." But that's what happens. We go through seasons of our lives where we have to kill things off. We have to let things go, and then in other stages of our lives, it can regrow again in something beautiful, something amazing, and just being out in nature, just seeing nature do its perfection, its beauty. Oh, then it truly does allow us to bask in it. One thing that I'm doing is having my sons watch the Fantasia movie, like with the orchestra
Mhm. Oh,
and
yeah.
nature. Oh my goodness, I love it because brings me back, but it makes me realize like if you watch it, it shows nature doing its natural thing, you know what I mean? Oh, like blooming out, you know what I mean? Doing things naturally. And I think when you're in nature, you're actually able to just like sit there and see the value and hold the value. So I guess it leads me to my next question. Like, when did you really start to like engage with nature?
Oh, that the nature part has been forever.
Yeah.
And nature and animals, and they're not the same, and yet they have been inextricably intertwined all of my life
Mhm.
to me. Um, I had challenges growing up. Most of us do. At this point, I call it trauma. Um, but when I was in nature, when I was around animals, I didn't have to mask. I did, like, in fact, I couldn't pretend around animals because they know, right? And when you're in the middle of the woods don't care about pretending. You get to just be you and you just get to come back to you. And so that's probably how I managed as long as I did before collapsing. Is just because
Yeah.
I held myself together by I would call it co-regulating. That's a
Mm.
nervous system term, but like being around animal nervous systems and forest nervous systems, they've been talking about the mycorrhizal fungal network as like the nervous system of the forest because it like brings signals back and forth all underneath the ground. But like I have steeped myself in that, and that has kept me okay
Yeah.
enough for long enough before I, you know, lost it. And now I can do it. And right now I live in the middle of a bowl like of forest and high summer right now. It's just like I just feel held and secure and safe because the forest has me right now.
Oh, I love that. To be honest, that's one of my goals is to buy land and then just have it so have my house surrounded by a bunch of trees. You know what I mean? I think that's just so beautiful because it's like you said, it is. It's like nature just protecting you, loving you, caring for you in such a way that no human being can really do. Because when you go out into society, they expect you to act a certain way, perform a certain way, be a certain way, do things a certain way that truly can affect our nervous systems, where it can put us into shock, where it's like, panic attack is real. Panic attacks are real. Like I get panic attacks. I can't go to like major festivals and be around a whole bunch of people because it gives me anxiety. You know what I mean? Like and I'm very empathetic. So it's like I can sense people's emotions right away. So it's like for me to just carry that, it's just it's too much. But when I go out into nature and I just look out into the sky or look out into a tree or even touch the ground, like the actual dirt in my hands, like it makes me realize like, okay, I am sane, I am whole, I am good. I just don't need to be around those people. What I
Yeah,
mean? And
right?
a lot of the times people don't realize, and this is one thing that I learned, is that dirt has a natural depressant in it. You know what I mean? So when you were talking about how like the trees connect with each other, they communicate with each other, I automatically thought of Avatar. You know what I mean? And how in the Avatar, the
Yeah,
movie, you know what I mean? The trees were connect, everything was still technically alive. And people don't realize like nature is alive just because it's not
yeah,
talking and having actual like intellectual conversations with you. Like, oh, did you see about the news? Like, no, just because the tree isn't doing that or a plant isn't doing that doesn't mean it's not alive. It doesn't hold value. So it truly is
yeah,
interesting to consider the fact that just putting yourself out in nature, it can bring you this sense of knowing that you are seen, you know what I mean? You are aware, you are alive, you are valued in some way, shape, or form. And the trees, they value you. I mean, you can morph into a tree if you stay in a spot long enough, the tree will eventually grow around you. You know what I mean? And then you can get stuck. I mean, it has happened. You chain a bike onto a tree, and that tree will, I mean, that bike will eventually morph into the tree throughout the years because it has grown accustomed to it. So it's like the more we put ourselves out into nature, the more we align ourselves, it truly does bring us back to nature. And so I guess I have to ask you, what is one of your pet peeves in this world?
one.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? You could probably have a lot, but like, what is one?
Oh, that we don't recognize our culture as traumatizing.
That's interesting.
We go through our life embracing the culture and perhaps seeing fault here and there, but it is like it's actively injurious in so many ways.
It
And
does. It
yeah,
really is. You're absolutely right. I can see where you're coming from because it is very toxic at the end of the day. You know, in natural, normal, mainstream society, it's very toxic and it's very traumatizing. It really is because we try to teach our children, oh, you are great, you are whole, you are amazing as you are. But as soon as you go into a school or into a social settings and they do something that's out of the ordinary, oh, you're bad, you're wrong, you can't be doing this, you need to stop, blah, 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 blah. Like conform, conform, conform. And it's like, yeah, that is traumatizing. So it really makes you question like what am I? What am I to do with myself? Where do I necessarily belong? So yes, I absolutely agree. I think that's a valid pet peeve because that is a pet peeve of mine too. Like sometimes I want my sons to go out into the world and embrace it, but then I know at the same times when my sons go out into the world, they are going to be forced to be perceived in a certain way. They are going to be forced to be a certain way to be acceptable in society's norms. And it's stressful because even I just thinking back then, you know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness, it's just oh my goodness, as a child, it was traumatizing, you know what I mean? To just be out into the world. So it's just like now it's like, oh
and
my
then we
goodness,
become numb to it as adults, right?
yes, and
But
we
it's
play it
the
off like
dopamine,
normal.
like the just the social media in our face, like the constant stressors.
Ugh.
Advertising is based on telling you how awful you are and what you need to fix that. or what you don't have and what you need to change
It's a
that,
contradiction.
instead
Yeah.
of being the white pine that is just
Beautiful.
stunningly beautiful in its, like
Essence.
you
Yeah.
can see that it got, damaged when it was a little baby pine and it continued to grow and it's wonderful.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that's so valid. Oh my goodness, Betsy. And it sucks because time is catching up to us. And I feel like we can continue diving down this rabbit hole because man, that's good information. It all ties in together. It really does because when we connect in nature and when we connect out into the world, it really does ask ourselves like kind of how do we conform? And like you've seen trees, like we've seen trees that had to conform in a certain way from the city, you know what I mean? And then once it's no longer acceptable in the city, they knock it down because it's in its way, it's a burden. And that's what happens to humans. We get knocked down, we get pushed out of the way, we are seen as invaluable anymore because we can't meet the status quo and social media. Oh my goodness, truly is a whole direction. But like, what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Um, Try to give yourself grace. You
Mm,
have always and only ever tried to do the best you could. And that's what everybody's doing.
yes.
And if you can give everybody else grace, it's not about you. It's about
Yeah.
them and their burden that they're holding. And
Yes.
sometimes that triggers you and makes you miserable, but in instances it is on purpose, but for the most part it's not on purpose. It's just
Yeah.
friction between your trauma and their trauma. So
Right.
grace, trying to allow yourself grace. You grew the way that you could, and you're beautiful just the way you are.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed this conversation, because how could you not? Oh my goodness, how could you not? Because I sure did. Please go check Betsy out. I have her websites on the audio here as well as in if you're listening on YouTube, go check it out. I have links to access her and everything that she has to offer the world so that you can continue on thinking because that is the point to continue on thinking, ladies and gentlemen. Keep thinking so that we can reflect and do it with grace. Live your life with grace, just like Betsy said. Give yourself grace and give grace to other people as well, because it's like she said, we're fracturing our traumas, and then we're only creating mayhem into the world, and we're not resolving anything. And if something is truly bothering you by what somebody said or what somebody did, well, then that's a good time to sit and reflect on it. Sit with your thoughts. Sit with these emotions, sit with what is conflicting inside and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Why is it coming out? What do I need to do? How do I still need to heal? How I still need to let go? How I still need to forgive? Because we are a work in progress, just like everybody else is in a work in progress. And when we give each other that grace and we give ourselves that grace, oh my goodness, we make our world and our little environments so much more of a more peaceful place that we can actually continue to grow to be the human being that we were meant to be. Because isn't that the point? Yes, to be all that we can be because we are already whole. We just need to realize that we are whole. So, with that being said, always, always, always keep thinking, y'all. Bye.